I think the low is just the like constant insecurity. You have these voices in your head, whether you have like an amalgam of who it is just this person that's like, who the hell do you think you are? Who's going to be embarrassed about you? Who's going to judge you? Like all these things.
Yep.
And that like constant internal dialogue is really hard to get over and the
Yeah.
insecurity that goes in.
This is Jonah Littman, guys. He is a PA. He's the creator and owner of the PA Guide and Inland Healthcare. He's done
Mhm.
emergency medicine. He's done pain, I believe. He's done critical access. He's done interventional radiology. So lots of things clinically and is really passionate about clinical education. And on top of that, has not one, not two, not three, not four, but six little ones and a wife of 12 years. So very well-rounded, very successful in all capacities. And we're excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to be here. So I'm used to doing Zoom where you're seeing lots of other faces. Is it just gonna be you and me, and then people are gonna comment as we go?
Yeah, so if you look over on the right-hand side, you can see that, or if you click chat at the bottom, you can see people in the chat kind of dropping
Oh,
in there.
cool.
I asked like, hey, what's your profession to just kind of kick us off so you can see people
Yeah, I saw
dropping
that.
in stuff there. So what we can do is as we kind of go back and forth, people can throw in their questions, thoughts, concerns. We'll try to wrap it up like with 15 minutes to spare or so that we have a
Mhm.
chance to go through, take all the questions and make sure that everybody's thoughts get answered.
Okay, fantastic.
So I want to talk about the entrepreneur stuff and what it's like to be a PA starting a business. But before I do, I know you have had a history of doing both W-2 and 1099 work. It's a highly applicable topic and a
Mhm.
lot of people mess it up. So let's talk about that to kick off. Give us your background on
Yeah,
how you ended up doing a little bit of both, and then we
sure.
can talk through like some of the logistics and some of the
Yeah.
key areas that medical professionals make mistakes.
So I accidentally fell into 1099 work when I graduated, like everyone else, I just, took the first job that came along. And it was fine. It was interventional radiology. I always loved emergency medicine.
Uh-huh.
And when I was given the advice by someone that, whatever you do, always have your foot in the door with like ER or urgent care, because that's
Mhm.
kind of the bread and butter of PA work.
Yeah.
So you can always kind of flex in and out of specialties that way. And I ended up doing 1099 work unintentionally. Like I didn't realize I was a 1099 employee for a
Yeah.
year. And then I like started looking at my pay stub from this urgent care I was working at. I was like,
Uh-huh.
why are taxes not getting taken? Like, what? Like, this is so weird. And then I did my taxes that year and was like, oh no,
Yep.
this is not what I meant to do, not what I wanted. Fast forward, I was doing a lot of critical access, rural emergency medicine. I got connected with this group that the guy who recruited me to it, that we staff a bunch of small, tiny hospitals in the area. He gave a lecture on basically how to be a 1099, but basically how to own your own company
Yeah.
and function as your own LLC or PLLC, S-Corp, and how it works. And so I started slow walking into that away from my full-time work and then did that full-time. I actually really liked doing that full-time for
Yeah.
about 3 months. The limiting factor at that time is my wife was pregnant. And the idea of being an hour and a half to 2 hours away for 24 to 48 hours at a time did not seem reasonable. And
Yeah,
so
fair.
an ER job in town opened up. So I took that. I'm doing
Yeah.
that. I really like that. And the balance I like with it now, at least for this point in my career, I've been a PA for a little over 5 years, is having a really strong team of expert physicians and PAs that I can work with and
Yeah.
grow and refine myself. But then also, I'm going still doing rural work and contract work where I'm forced to be the one making a decision. So I like this. I feel like this is going to be my long term in doing the
Mhm.
1099 work. But right now, I just do both.
Nice. Okay. Well, I love that you shared the tax experience because that actually happens to a lot of folks.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of like people come in our coaching program where they have been earning, some of them even like 200 to 300K in the previous
Mm-hmm.
year, doing
Mm-hmm.
1099 works, maybe it was locum contracts, whatever, and they paid zero taxes because they
Mm-hmm.
just didn't know. And so then, the tax bill is enormous. And of course, at that point, you pay penalties and then you have to have a whole back tax payment structure and it's really convoluted.
Mm-hmm.
But just that simple thing is tricky. I did 1099 work too at the beginning of my career professionally. I was a W-2, but then I also had a bunch of per diem jobs. They were all 1099 and I
Mm-hmm.
knew nothing, right? I mean, I'm like at the time, I don't know, 25 years old. I know nothing about this. unfortunately, my mom's a CPA and says, hey, you got to make estimated quarterly payments. I'm like, oh, I didn't know. And to be honest, that could have totally happened to me too if I hadn't had her telling me that. And so it's like that one thing, of course, there's layers of this. Like you can
Mhm.
really actually, I think, do 1099 work and come out way ahead financially if you're doing it well.
Yeah.
The first key thing is like you got to pay taxes, right? You got to do.
Well, I would, and I mean, caveat to all this from I think probably I'm not going to speak to you for, but for me, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just going to talk about my experience.
Yeah.
So if anyone takes this and makes bad decisions, that's their fault.
That might be the best disclaimer I've ever heard. No, I love that. Let's talk about the 1099 and using your own entity as an S-Corp piece, because I think
Yeah.
it's one of the ways you can really optimize your tax
Mhm.
situation if you go ahead and do that. So it sounds like
Yeah.
you structured yourself that way. Big
Yeah.
picture,
So
what's it look like?
I am all for work with people who are smarter than you and know more than you. And if you think you're a PA and you can figure out the tax code, good luck. You're not. And if you know anything about legal stuff, congratulations, you're an attorney that changed your career. So I found an accountant in town by
Uh-huh.
the reference of my father-in-law. And all I was looking for is like, I want someone near my age. I don't want someone near retirement because I want someone to grow old with. And then as I sat down with him, I was like, hey, what do I do? And he's like, well, I'd recommend this.
Yeah.
Great. How do I do that? Get an attorney. Cool. Who? This guy. Great. I'm gonna go with that attorney.
Yeah.
Going off references of people, it costs money. It obviously costs money to have an accountant. It costs money to have an attorney. But they put together a structure in a way for me that I mean, my taxes were fantastic this year.
Yeah.
I function so like you said, I own PA Guide, which is a whole nother thing we can talk about. But inland healthcare, the only reason it's not like a lot of people just call it by their name, like Jonathan Littman,
Yeah.
LLC or S-Corp. The only reason I took inland healthcare is I was like, well, I live in the inland Northwest. If I want to start an actual like local practice, it'd be nice to hold that title. And it was available. But I really, really enjoy functioning as a business. And the cool thing about being a contractor and an S Corp is you're kind of immediately a profitable business. Like a lot of people, you start a business, you start a product, and you're like, dang, if I could just make six figures this year, that would be incredible. And you're like, well, you could do that in like 2 months or like 3 months as a PA if you're like
Yeah.
wise about it. Obviously, you have to pay taxes, you have to track your receipts, but it ended up being a really positive year for me. And I'm going into my second year doing it.
Yeah, I'm going to just kind of give people like a big picture overview of what it looks like if you are someone who's thinking about this. It's really mostly applicable to someone who does a lot of 1099 work, where
Mhm,
you would have 1099 wages that would exceed what the IRS would deem a reasonable wage for
mhm,
PA or NP or whoever you are professionally. Mostly full-time 1099, I would say majority of the time. The
yeah.
attorney will actually create the business entity, which is usually an LLC. It's normally taxed as an S corp. You're usually creating an LLC. That's the attorney piece. You might already mentioned, hey, got a reference for that. And then the next piece is actually like operating your LLC, which would be taxed as an S corp in a way
Mhm,
that's compliant. And so there's
mhm,
actually CPAs that specialize in this that like set this up for medical professionals specifically.
mhm,
You basically have your pay comes in two forms. You have your payroll and then you have distributions.
mhm,
The benefit of the S corp is that you save FICA taxes on the
mhm,
distributions piece and you pay
mhm,
them as you normally would on the payroll piece. And so it
mhm,
takes some of your self-employed income and lowers the
mhm.
tax bill. But then someone has to keep track of all of it, right? Like doing the payroll correctly, doing the tax withholding correctly. And that's why there's entire CPA services that exist.
Mhm.
Again, really geared towards medical professionals that will set this up and they'll do all of it for you so that you don't have to like run payroll all by yourself if you've never done anything like that before. It's a
Yeah.
pretty common setup so it saves you in some taxes. It does give you this business entity. I've seen folks do it like yourself. I've seen actually a lot of folks do it who have a surgical subspecialty experience and they
Mhm,
will first assist for a bunch of different groups as their like main gig. They make bank doing that, by the way, and then they'll structure everything this way. And it works out
mhm.
really well for them from like a schedule control standpoint as well as financial standpoint.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool setup. I think there's a lot of nuance to it that I don't even know, but it's like changed my mindset and my approach to work and money. Like it used to be like, no, I only want to do W-2 work, and I'm like,
Yeah.
huh, I don't really want to do W-2 at all long term. Like I want to get it. Like, oh, I gotta have benefits. I'm like, no, I don't. I can take care of this myself. I can do this better.
Yeah, it's true. And it's more flexible.
Mhm,
Plus, if you have self-employment income, you get access to retirement accounts that
Mhm.
are tax advantage that are applicable to self-employed folks. And
Mhm.
the cool thing is, like, for example, if you were to open a solo 401k, you can actually put away way more tax advantage money with a solo 401k acting as the employee and the employer than you
Yes.
could if you had a regular 401k at your job, which is
Yes.
funny because a lot of people are like, oh, I need the benefits. Like you said, like, I can't succeed without a 401k. What will I do? When
Mhm.
actually you can do better being
Mhm.
1099, even from an investing standpoint, if you have that self-employed income.
Yeah, I think that was part of like personal sacrifice when I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay local and I'm going to do W-2 work
Yeah.
because my family comes first. Of like, I'm going to make a lot less money, but that's okay. Like, it's
Yeah.
fine for now.
Yeah, no, that's reasonable. And like, being 2 hours away from your pregnant wife is scary. As I sit here, I'm like, I don't know, almost 39 weeks pregnant. I'm
Oh
like,
boy,
yeah,
congratulations!
I
Is this
know.
number
Thanks.
two, three, four?
Number
What is?
two. It will never be number six, I'll tell you that. I don't have the bandwidth. I'm glad you do, but I don't
Funny, neither did I.
have the bandwidth. And yet here you are, all smiles anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you told me that, I was like, oh my gosh. I laugh because I feel busy with one child currently, and so I could just can't even imagine six.
One is all consuming because they need you for attention. Six can play together.
That's a great point. Yeah, you've got a whole little collection there.
Hmm.
Now, tell us, you mentioned this earlier, and I kind of want to like lean into this. You had said that you were told like, hey, keep your foot in the door
Hmm.
professionally with some of these key like big picture specialties so that you can flex in and out of subspecialties as you see fit. Have you like in your experience, you kind of done that? Has that proven to be a really good strategy for you? Do you feel like that's something that most medical professionals or APPs in particular should think about?
Yeah, I think it's been hugely beneficial. I've always had since I've started working more than one job as a PA, and I've seen the real benefit is I've seen people lose their job. I had a good friend. He worked in interventional pain. He is functionally to me an expert.
Uh-huh.
In it, he's worked in it for 15 years, but that's all he's done is PM&R and pain.
Right.
And had a disagreement with our owner, got fired,
Wow.
and he sold his house that night and his family of four and moved to where he could get another job. He was just like,
Wow.
he had no option. Whereas I was like, dude, just go work in an urgent care. Go. He's like, I can't. No one's gonna hire me. I've never done it. And I have another friend who's frankly stuck at that same practice because no one's gonna hire her because she doesn't have primary care experience. Whereas I really like the group I work with right now, but if they lose the contract or if something
Yeah.
happens or
Yeah.
whatever, I won't be stuck. And so I really like it. I mean, life, we don't have a ton of control in life, but it does give a sense of like freedom and control of like, okay, well, if this doesn't work out, I'll be fine. I don't love urgent care. I actually don't do it now, but I could still do it. It's a good job. It's
Right.
good work. It fits a need. So I would say if anyone who is on the like APP NP side of things, if you could have that as an option would be a hugely beneficial situation for you.
That's so interesting that you say that. It's something that I've actually been thinking about lately because I've done that, but not in the same fields. My clinical whole profession has been hospitalist medicine, inpatient cardiology, and critical care. And all of
Hmm.
that, almost all of it, has been 100% inpatient adult medicine. And so
Hmm.
I've basically excluded myself after a decade of practice from anything that requires me to treat a kid. So I really
Hmm.
couldn't go work in an emergency department unless it was
Yeah.
one that has separate pediatric ER. I couldn't
Yeah.
go work in urgent care. I mean, I guess I could figure out the skills, but like I don't feel comfortable treating kids. And so it's funny now, professionally, I've had to really go, okay, my wheelhouse is now inpatient adult medicine.
Hmm.
Fortunately, I have a broad enough experience that I feel like job wise there's enough.
Hmm.
But, had I stayed in, for example, inpatient cardiology for 15 years rather than having a little bit of flex there, I think that would have been
Hmm.
a professional challenge for me, which is
Yeah.
an interesting point because I think for PAs in particular, even 10 years ago, the standard was you get a job, you work the job until you retire. And
Yeah.
now the standard is very much like you work multiple jobs, you change subspecialties, like you flex around.
Yeah.
And financially, honestly, it works out better. All like across industry data says you're going to earn way more when you job hop than if you
Hmm.
apply for a raise or promotion, whatever, at
Yeah.
your current position. Like the average is 10%
Yeah,
job.
I think that's always like a value statement, and like that there's a temperament. There's a type of temperament. Like I have a friend who works in IR, and he's like, I want to just work my 410s and go skiing, and that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm like, great, fantastic, good for you. Whereas other people, like I'm the temperament that I'm always kind of like, what's next? What else can I do? How can and I've kind of had to accept the like strengths and weaknesses with that. And I think a lot of people like when you hear young PAs or young people going into a field like this, they always talk about like the lateral ability. And I think they don't realize how hard that actually is, how hard it actually is to switch a specialty. It's no joke. And like you went cardiology, hospitalist, ICU, like those kind of fall hand in hand. But if you went
Yeah.
cardiologist, ICU, derm, like
Yeah.
it would be a
Yeah.
huge change.
It'd be crazy. But
Yeah.
even doing those switches was still a really steep learning curve.
Yeah.
It's funny because they're even like you said, they kind of go hand in hand, but reality is any switch is a learning curve. And
Oh
so,
yeah.
if you're going from ENT to adult critical care medicine, it's like, whoa.
Well, that's not, yeah, that's brutal.
How does that function? Yeah, yes. Well, okay. Tell me this as I think a lot of people want to hear about your business, how you
Mhm.
started it, why you started it, what it's like to start a business. So share that piece. Just give us the background first, and then we can kind of dive into logistics and what it actually looks like to execute.
Yeah. Background. Career change student. I was, long story short, a youth pastor that decided somehow I was going to get into medicine, and was a communications major that hated everything about science and never wanted to go into medicine. Thought about it once in college and wrote it off because I was like, nope, watching too much Scrubs. I shouldn't do this. Somehow I got interested in it, doing a lot of wilderness work and being a backpacking guide and working in Yosemite and overseas. And I was like, I did a wilderness medical course. I'm like, this is really cool. What else is there? So again, very long story short, started pursuing that, getting like EMT license, going back to school, doing prereqs, becoming a scribe, blah, 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 blah. Applied to 22 schools, got in first round, I think purely by numbers and personality. They were like, yes, you're big and loud, we'll accept you. Got in. And so I started PA school with one daughter. I ended with three daughters. And again, did not have a strong science background. Really struggled to comprehend like osmosis and mitochondria. Like it just didn't make sense to me. As definitely what I would say the weakest candidate in my program, but still I was elected to be class president and ran a student run clinic. I was told by a professor, or they said this at the beginning of school, because everyone always asks, like, how do we learn this? How do we get through this? How do we absorb medicine? And the I think stupid asinine cliches we use are, oh, it's like drinking from a fire hose, or you'll figure it out, or we're not going to spoon feed you. And I'm like, that doesn't help. But one professor had the wherewithal and the wisdom to say the evidence shows the best way to learn is by handwriting your notes. And so I started handwriting my own notes, making my own notebooks, and I ended school with I had 14 notebooks I created for every system and a board review notebook that I just made these duct tape notebooks that I loved and became like part of my experience. And I walked away from that, like, never thought like, oh, I should start a business. I was just like, oh, that was cool. And then as I graduated and started working, and COVID happened, COVID happened, I was like, I want to do something. Like, I kind of like, I've always been creative. I always want to do something. And I'm like, I don't really want to do the like coaching, essay editing, personal statement thing. Like, this just didn't appeal to me. And I started playing with my notebooks, or I started playing with what I was doing, and I was like, well, maybe I could create like notebooks to help people organize their thoughts and get through PA school. So I did, sold like about 1,000 of them, and sold them in the UK. It was actually the first spot that PAs got interested in them. I had an Olympic runner who's a PA in Canada buy it, and then people around the US did, and it was cool. It was fun. But the biggest feedback I got from people was, this is cool. I don't know how to draw. I was like, well, I guess I'll illustrate it. So I'm like, that'll take me the summer. It took me 2 years. And I illustrated what became the PA Guide Board Review Notebook.
There you go.
PA Guide Board Review Notebook. It is 600 pages, about 1,000 illustrations of everything that you're going to learn in medicine.
Yeah.
And in the board review. So with this hemonc, neuro, stuff like this. So these are very simple drawings designed around the framework of pathology, patient diagnosis, treatment. And then as I was doing this, I had a friend come alongside me. He's like, hey, this is cool. Yeah. Let's make this into a thing. So then we've taken this and developed PA Guide, which is, we have the board review notebook, a course that we have developed around the 2025 PANS, plus clinical pharmacology, plus we're developing EOR courses, flashcard interactives, quizzes, all the stuff that goes with it to help people kind of learn and reason from different directions before sitting down into a lecture. And we have a clinical chatbot, and we're developing other chatbots, but a clinical chatbot to help people clinically reason through a subject, specifically before you get into rotation. So we have a mix of like analog and courses and quizzes, and here's like the clinical pharmacology notebook, all designed to help students learn medicine focus their learning, be more productive, because PA school is a huge mess. And I could keep going to why and our goal, but we've released it, we're getting it out there. And what I really want to see is students using this and getting away from the cliches of like, it's like drinking from a fire hose, or you're just going to cry your
Yeah,
way.
you might do that anyways, but I
Yeah.
love the juxtaposition, honestly, of like the old school, write your notes, look at this illustration, but then also like the AI chatbot. It's like, it's really cool to see the technology leverage, but also like you mentioned, there is real genuine data that you absorb better when you actually write.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's just really cool. I have
Sounds
to
like
say, it's like this is kind of the common thread whenever I talk to PA, NP or even pharmacist entrepreneurs of any type. It's
Mhm.
like the people who build businesses, especially ones that stick around for several years, it typically is like born out of their own pain point.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you're like school sucked and it was really rough, and I had a hard time like getting this in my head, and so then you create a system to help people like get in their head. I was
Yeah.
like drowning financially and regretted my career decision as a result. So then I was like, how do I fix this? And then figured it out.
Yeah.
I literally just talked to a PA who started a company creating like a medicated dry shampoo. And she was
Yeah.
like, I work in derm. I had this problem and like I would use these medications, but I never let them sit on my scalp long enough. And so they never worked. And so like I had this pain point. I created a product and I solved it, which is cool to see people actually
Mhm.
doing that and like looking out and going, hey, how can I improve this situation that I face for other people? And then like forming it into a whole thing.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you? You mentioned at least the illustration part took longer than planned. How long did it take you to go from idea to
Mhm.
live? This is a business, you can make a purchase from me.
I had it for sale during the process, and it wasn't like it was very informal, but I mean, it's been a year.
Uh-huh.
It probably took us 6 months from like the time I'm like, I need to finish illustrating this book, let's start building the course.
Yeah.
But it's still been even like a year since then of building more content, recording more videos, getting all the like notes and contents and quizzes together. And it's then like every time we do it, like, oh, we need to do this next, and we need to do this next, and we need to keep building, and then doing the like social media side of it and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's just constant. There's no like, oh, we did it, we arrived. It's like, oh my God, I have to keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
That is the truth. There is never an arrived moment ever. There's always like
I wish there
right.
was like, yes, nailed it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So as you've been doing this, like give us a highlight and then just give us a real low moment too, because let's be real, there's low moments when you're trying to do anything.
I'll start with the low.
Okay.
I think the low is just the like constant insecurity. You have these voices in your head, whether you have like an amalgam of who it is just this person that's like, who the hell do you think you are? Who's going to be embarrassed about you? Who's going to judge you? Like all these things.
Yep.
And that like constant internal dialogue is really hard to get over, and the
Yeah.
insecurity that comes with it. You're doing something you think is really valuable, and I'm doing something that I think I'm like, my goal is not to just like to build this thing, make money. I'm like, I want to
Yeah.
the way we teach medicine. I want to change the culture of medicine. I'm not going against big pharma. I want to go against the way we teach it. Maybe I could change the culture of how we teach and mentor people, so we stop
Yeah.
eating. It's like the low light and the challenge with it. The highlight is then like, as I've put it out there, then I've had these people like Eric Fogg, who's a friend of yours, who reached out to me. He's like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. This is it. And to have like professors or students, like when they get it and they're like, oh
Yep.
my God, I can do this. Or professors are like, this student got this. And now they're not coming to me every week for help in remediation. Or Eric, who's like, this is
Right.
everything that PA students need. Like when people get it and get something that you've put your heart and soul into, and realize it's not just like, we're not just making more content. We're not just making more videos. There's enough videos out there. But I think when people get in, they're like, oh, this is fantastic. That feeling is really cool.
Yep.
But it's very
Yes, that is the best moment. And like, yeah, when you actually see like how, wow, I did this thing, I made this thing, or I created this, and then like, look, this person, like a real, tangible, genuine person actually derived benefit. That's like
yes.
pinnacle moment. But
Yeah.
it's really hard to put yourself out there. And you've mentioned like content creation, and realistically, this is 2025. Like you reach a lot of people through social media. But then,
Mhm.
like whether it's imagined of like, oh, who's gonna judge me if I create this video or whatever, or someone literally says something like mean on the internet, it's
Yeah.
hard to really be willing to put yourself out there like that. And everyone
Yeah.
has a different personality. I'm very private. And so like I don't love to like post anything on social media about my life or whatever, but that's the nature of like getting to know people and relating to people. So it's tricky, especially for someone like me. Like I would much rather keep all that to myself forever. But
Yes.
it's like you have to make some sacrifices
Yeah.
if you want to actually like get to know people and be like, hey, I'm just like you. I struggled through school, or like I struggle with my student loans or whatever the piece may be. What skills have you had to learn? Because let's be real, like this is starting a business, even if it's like clinical adjacent, right? Like you're teaching medicine,
Yeah.
it's so different than doing medicine. So
Yes.
what are the skills that you've had to garner along the way?
Marketing, business creation, business planning, budgeting, social
Like,
media management. What was the AI integration, app development, coding, like video
yeah,
creation, like yes, all of it.
yeah.
Like, which is then fun because it then fits again my temperament. That's like an insane person. But what the hope is that this is gonna again really really benefit people. Also, I would hope it really benefit my kids.
Yeah, for sure. No,
Yeah,
I totally feel the same way. I think we have the same temperament where I like to feel like I'm a ladder climber. And so like I like to feel like there's a next rung.
yeah,
And professionally, not that I couldn't ever like become a better clinician. We all can, right? But after 10 years, I've climbed a lot of the rungs. And
yeah,
so you get to a point where I'm like I can't
yeah,
like make a professional leap up this ladder. So then I
yeah.
like, got on a new ladder. I was like, okay,
Yeah,
well, let me just go to the
you're not
bottom
gonna
rung
be
here.
you're
And
not gonna be a doctor,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Like I legitimately thought about it at one point. I'm like, do I go to medical school? And like really entertained it, really explored it. And then I was like,
Yeah.
no, I don't need my kids.
Oh, it's
And
funny. I actually did the same thing. I actually looked into like the PA to MD programs because I felt the same way. Like I need a next step.
something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I realized, well, either way, I'm starting at the beginning. And so I might as well start at the beginning of something that doesn't cost me $200,000 to do and find a way to grow. But that I think is the best and the worst part in a lot of ways of starting a business is you really have to recognize, wow, I don't know anything. Like I'm back to being like that first rotation where you're like, I barely understand the words that are coming out of your mouth. Like that's you again in a whole new realm. And you have to be willing to like put in the time and the effort and learn all this stuff. It's taken me a long time to learn.
Well,
Like,
I mean, the funny thing is like even in that like you start getting into things like social media. Like I've known of you and the stuff you've done probably for like I first opened up an Instagram probably like 3 years ago. I'm like, who are the PAs doing this? So I've known of you and what you're doing and like super intimidated. Like you are this parasocial person who does this stuff and like like I know nothing about you except for what you'd put online.
right.
You know nothing about me except for what I put online. And we don't know like the thoughts we have in the back of our head. And
Ah,
I love it. We've talked about Alex Ramosi and
yes.
we appreciate him. And there's just one video, and I'm not gonna drop the F-bomb like he does in it, but he just goes like, you're gonna have this voice in the back of your head, and this insecurity. People wonder like, what do you do to get beyond it? He's like, you just have to get over it. And you
Yeah.
just have to do it. Like you just whatever that voice is, you just have to curse them out and move on. And that like, yeah, that sensation of being in a rotation. Like I describe PA school to incoming students of like, you are gonna suck at a job every 2 weeks for the next 2 years.
Truth. Yeah.
Whether it's didactic or clinical. And that's like, I feel that every day now. I'm like, I sit down in the time that I have to work on things. I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I do this? Like, what's the next thing I do? And luckily I have a partner that can help me like refocus that. If not, like I'm 10 sheets to the wind. I have no idea what I'm doing next.
Oh, I love that. It's true though. I mean, as you walk through the process of like figuring this out, you are exactly in those shoes and you have to just accept the failure as a part of the process. I honestly think that just creating a business has made me a lot better as a human being because I used to really like lean into the perfectionism type of approach to life where I was kind of hesitant to step into anything that I thought I wasn't sure if I could execute well. But you cannot build anything like that. You just can't. You have to be willing to be like, let me just give this my all and then fail and then sit on my dining room floor for a while and cry about it and then pick it all back up and do it again. And so
Yeah.
it actually really grew me as a person to come out of that
Yeah.
perfectionism mentality and be willing to fail, which is hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard skill to learn and to be willing to do it over and over.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not a perfectionist and it's really hard for me. Like I am very much go with the flow. I, traveled for 7 months once around Europe and the United States and spent $2,000. Like like let's
It's
go dirt
amazing.
poor. And that's a whole nother story, but like I am not the perfectionist and it's still every day I had hair. I know. It,
I love that.
that's been gone for a long time. But like even that speaks to even like your temperament with what your brand originally was Strive with Kristen. Like
Yeah.
you realized like, oh, I'm not arrived. I have not arrived and I'm not going to. This is
Right.
a
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, I have to ask this because obviously you have 6 kids. How do you think you starting this business, even as a side business, has it
Mhm.
shaped your kids' view of the world, or will it shape their view of the world of the world?
I mean, I hope it shapes their view of the world. Right now, they're like, Dad, are you filming something again? What are you making? What is that? Like Dad is
Yeah,
just working on something. Like I do it in the early mornings or late
yeah.
at night. Like it's, sometimes like this, like, frankly, was not the most convenient time for us. And
Sorry.
I told my wife, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna do this thing at 5 o'clock and I love you. And she's like, uh,
Yeah,
but so generally they're like, oh, Dad has a meeting. I'm like, yeah, it's just work. Like I'm just working. Like they don't have a concept. I would love to build this to a point that, whether or not my kids go into medicine, it'd be cool to have
sure.
something that I've developed and built and they could be part of. That's like
Yeah,
an entrepreneurial dream. Who
yep,
knows? Like I get control over my kids. Like if you're
yep,
talking about something that you don't have control over and it's a journey.
yep.
Oh, you were saying this too, and it made me think about it. They're like starting a business made me a better person. Compare it to like starting a business is like owning a house versus renting. Like being a W-2 employee is like
Yeah,
renting, which is great. It's a great
yeah,
thing. But
yep,
when you own it, you're like, oh, the plumbing's gone. Uh-oh. I
yeah,
have again, being a W-2 employee feels much more like being a babysitter, and owning something, you're like, oh, this is like owning the house. This is
yep.
I have to figure this out. But also there's I think a lot more value in it. Not that being an employee is not valuable, but I think at least for me a lot more personal value of like, that first time someone bought something from me and they're like, oh, this is super cool. I'm like, yes, it is. Oh, wow. Like, what so much.
Yep.
Yes, I did it. Like,
Yeah.
so
I also
it's
think it like changes your view of thinking that having a job as a W-2 or even a 1099 employee is security. I think
yeah.
that's probably the biggest trap. Like people that are like solely employees, they fall into this idea of like, well, I have a job, so I'm safe and I can kind of cruise around with like, $300 to my name and like hopefully I don't crash my car and life's good. But then as you like do something on your own, I think you realize like, wow, that place I'm working for, that's just a company too. And like
Mhm.
they actually have seasons of not profitability and they have an opportunity to lay people off if they can't afford their staff. And like it makes you recognize like actually there is no such thing as job security anywhere. And that's
Yeah.
kind of a lie that I think most medical professionals believe.
Yeah, well, we saw that in tech the last couple of years of like just how much like it was, go code, go learn to code, go get into
Right.
tech. And like I came of my professional age watching all these people go into tech and like super jealous of them. And now I'm like, oh, okay, that's not that permanent. But same with medicine, like everyone is replaceable.
Yep.
Even the most badass surgeon,
Yep.
whoever they are, they will retire, they will get fired, whatever, and they will be
Yep.
forgotten.
And then
Like
AI will
no
replace us all.
no one is special. You are not special to your employer. And if they say that to you, they're lying.
Yep, it is so true. And we all say it with like a little bit of bitterness of like, oh, I work for this huge academic center. I'm just a cog in a wheel. But the truth is, it's true even if you work for like a very small private practice, you are irreplaceable in some areas of your life with your family, with your close friends, etc. You're just never gonna be irreplaceable at work. And I think like, having that recognition is important. And it's a hard thing to wrap your mind around, especially if you're really professionally driven and you're early in your career, like focused on climbing the ladder.
Well, yeah, like I mean, the things that I'm irreplaceable in is dad and husband.
Right? Yeah.
And everything else is, I mean, if it came down to my wife was like, I need you to quit medicine because this is not working for us, I'd be like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Same.
work at Starbucks. Like I'm gonna
Right.
figure like or like I'm
Yeah.
gonna figure out something different. Like everything, this is maybe a whole nother tangent. Like I don't believe in the term calling, and I don't believe in calling in medicine. All that is language for people to get abused.
There's some truth to that.
And I think a lot of people martyr themselves on the idea of calling, like, I'm called to be a teacher, I'm called to be a pastor, I'm called to be
Yeah.
a nurse, I'm called to be a doctor. And I'm like, no, you're not. If you're that miserable, if you go to bed every night hoping that you don't wake up, but this is your calling, it's not your calling.
Right.
Change. Like,
Yeah, make a shift. If someone did want to start a business, I think there's some like logistical steps that are kind of intimidating at the beginning in particular. So let's just talk first, like funding. Did you go into this with like a big bunch of money that you invested, or what did that look like?
so we have a couple VCs that have given us a $5 to $10 million. I'm just kidding. I've got nothing.
I was like, whoa, we didn't talk about this before.
I'm talking about this. I'm just rolling in it. No, this is purely bootstrapping. Yeah, funding wise, my own money and my partner's money.
Yep.
And we just decided, and he's a business guy. He's not a medicine guy. So
Oh,
I function as the CEO. He's what we call the COO. It's just the two of us right now. So, yay. It's a benign title, but I'm much more the face of it and the creative drive behind it. And he helps with the more reasonable aspect or the more like financial and directive side of it. The cool thing about working with someone who works in business and has a much more business mindset, like we'll talk about something and I'll be like, oh, what about doing this? Oh man, it would cost like $2,000. And I'm like, that's a lot. He's like, I already paid for it. Like he's like unfazed by the expense of it because he sees the value in like you pay for this so that you can get this out
Yep.
of it. And so having that mindset of, the idea like you spend money to make money makes a lot more sense when you actually are seeing return on things. So no, we don't have big investments. Sometimes we think about that. I think maybe at some point it would be nice to have a conversation of like, hey, how much longer do we want to bootstrap this versus, if we could find an angel investor or grants or something like that. But right now he works full time. He's a part owner in his business that he works for doing like marketing and stuff. I'm very busy and we're like, okay, we're just slowly going to let this simmer and hopefully it grow.
I love that. I was the same, bootstrap the whole way. I've never once had like business debt, any type of outside investment of any kind. When I started this thing, I think like 6 years ago now, it was
Mhm.
with $800. If you
Yeah.
want to inflation adjust that out to whatever it is now, it's still like, at the end of the day, it was not a huge investment. And I just grew at the speed of that. And
Yeah.
honestly, I think that that's the best way to do it, especially if you're really a true medical professional. Like, hey, I want to start a side business. The easiest thing to do is to do it that way financially, where your output at the beginning is relatively low. And then you don't have to like stress out about, am I profitable? Can I pay these loans that I took out or whatever? Easier said than done in some types of businesses. Obviously some businesses require capital to
Yeah.
start, but
Yeah.
what we're talking about are relatively low capital businesses to kick off. And you can do it really in a pretty financially responsible way, so to speak, even if you don't have a ton of money, which is nice.
Well, I think a part of that too, and like your whole thing that we both joined the Dave Ramsey cult at some point in our lives and paid off our student debt. I think when you have the mindset of like, well, I was paying $2,000 to $5,000 a month towards my student loans. Oh, it's $1,000 for me to start this LLC. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not that. Like you
Right.
just have a different mindset. Like I'm not burdened by $200,000 of student debt.
Yeah.
So what do I want to do with it? It would be much harder
Yeah.
to, I think if you're drowning in mortgage, car payment,
Yeah.
student debt, and credit card debt, yeah, you could go start something, but maybe you need to get your house in order before you go start something.
Touche,
Yeah.
touche. There's a time for everything. But I
Yes.
totally agree. I think like you have mentioned to kind of like skirted around it, the idea of like what's the value for the cost.
Mhm.
And I think as medical professionals, we've really grown up in this mindset of like, hey, the key to success is to go to prolonged education, pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for it, get the job. And it's not wrong or bad, but like I think the further you get into the world of like actual entrepreneurship or starting a business, the more you realize like, wow, I can actually accrue skills in the same exact way I did in medicine that
Mhm.
pay me just the way I did in medicine. And so like
Mhm.
I'll spend a ton of money on courses and coaching and people think it's dumb, but it's like, hey, it grows my skill set. If there's a
Mhm.
return on investment and I'm a money person, so I make sure there is, then like why would I not spend thousands of dollars learning these new skills if I can then like go around and convert it into value? And so
Mhm.
I really think if you're willing to take the mindset that we all learned when we were young of like, well, you got to learn the stuff right before you can execute it. If you're willing to
Mhm.
take that and go out there, like, man, you can learn all of this stuff. You can learn a lot in regards to business and like creating a small business without saying, oh, I need to go back and get an MBA or, go back and do the PA to MD program or whatever it is, right?
Well, I think the nice thing too, and it maybe the people in this chat can speak in this too, is like we have a really great fallback. Like you could
Mhm.
go and start anything
Yeah.
or invest in a business and completely fall on your face, and you're like, well,
Back to urgent care.
I'm gonna go back and work in nursing. I'm gonna go back and
Yep.
work in medicine. Like I think people always talk about how hard medicine is, and yes, it's hard and mentally taxing, and the system's broken and stuff. But like, yeah, you're not a roofer. I roofed. I did one pack of roofing on a chicken coop I built. Those things are 80 pounds. You know how hard that is on a human body?
Right.
And we're like, no, I had to spend 20 minutes on Epic doing my chart. Man, like you have so much opportunity to like try and fail and fall back on your license and do something that's still not going to kill your body. Like have fun.
Yeah, it is so true. And honestly, it gives us a unique advantage in being willing to take a little bit of risk if you want to start something, because you
Yes.
know, like, hey, if I maintain my license and I maintain some semblance of skill set, like I have a ticket to a six-figure income again. That's all it takes is to go out and
Yeah.
apply. And a
Yeah.
lot of folks don't have that ability. So for us, it almost takes a little bit of that risk out of the equation that we have this really cushiony kind of fallback.
Yeah, but most people who get into medicine generally are risk adverse because we want something that's gonna pay the bills, which is fine. Like
Stable
that's
career, right?
yes, that's stable career. That stable career that we all hate and bitch about online.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. You mentioned just the two of you as like the key folks. Have you leaned into like getting any kind of way to delegate outside of that, whether it's like technology-based, human-based, or are you executing everything?
We have some contract groups we've worked with doing like marketing and stuff. We actually just dropped our contract with them because we were pretty disappointed.
The nature of it. That's the nature of it, right? I feel like
Yeah,
that's
they're like, oh,
for
you're not
every
that good at this. And like, different things like, I'm not good at photography and I've accepted that I'm not good at photography. So now I'm trying to find a photographer and someone to help us like create video content and stuff that's like appealing to the eye.
Ah,
So yeah, there's different things like that. And like, yeah, utilizing there's a ton of AI tools out there that suddenly I'm
yep,
like, oh, I'm going to shell out a couple $100 for this thing because
yep.
this is like the free trial's not cutting it anymore.
Right.
Like I'm no longer a free trial person. I'm like, nope, premium content. I
I'm
need the
all in.
thing.
Yeah.
I'm all in. And I'm still pretty selective with it. So I think as we grow, I want to have more contractors and more people working with me on it because there's so much I want to do. Kristen, there's so much I want to build. Like I cannot tell you how much I have in my head all the time that I don't, even if I had full, like all the time in the world to do it, I just want to see like PAs and NPs and even doctors, but they have that own like level of breaking into it. Like I just want to see people crushing it at school instead of just being like the way I described it to a friend is PA school and learning medicine is people have this attitude of like, well, I suffered through this, therefore you should suffer through it. And my friend's like, that's interesting. That's the cycle of abuse. So,
Oh, that's so
so
funny. But that's the true mindset in medicine. I think across professional careers, that is the true mindset is like, hey, I drowned, I worked the whatever 100-hour week, you should have to. But honestly, I love that. And I think we're really similar in that way. I always have like a litany of a million things that I'm like, we should do this, we should do this, we should do this. And I think I probably overwhelm everyone on my team with my constant ideas. But it's funny though, one of the things I've come to like truly believe is the whole like Parkinson's law that work expands to fill the time allotted to it. And I think it's true in medicine in some ways, like the nights that we have really busy shifts and like everyone's dying and the whole ICU is on fire, somehow you get a lot more work done. And
yeah.
it's true in business too. And so I've like, it's funny starting my business pre being a parent and post, I have so much less time. Like I cannot even tell you how much less time I have, but somehow I get more done. It's like, how does this work? I think you just find like the 20% of the things that generate the 80% of the results. You end up like squeezing minutes out of the day that you didn't know you had. And you
Yeah.
find ways to be more efficient because otherwise you drown, right? So it's kind of, I have found the whole idea of, hey, I don't maybe have time to do a side business actually isn't as true as you think. I mean, you have 6 kids and work full time and you did
Yep.
this, right?
Yes, I did this and I have 6 kids. I work multiple jobs.
Yep.
Um,
There you
and
go.
like, it was the same as when I was in PA school. People were like, how are you doing this kids? I'm like, how are you doing this without kids? Like, like, what's your purpose? What's keeping you motivated?
Uh,
Uh,
I will say I'm so impressed with that. We had like 2 people in my graduating class that had kids. I had like infinite respect for them then. I have infinite respect for you for having multiple kids during PA school because trust me, I felt like I could barely hang without any kiddo obligation. So kudos to you, genuinely. Well, let me see. I think we got a couple of questions in the chat here. This gentleman is an interventional pain management and med spa owner. So ironically, said the
oh,
rewards
nice.
are vastly better being an owner. Yes, 1,000%.
True.
Whether you own a medical practice or anything else, I firmly believe ownership is one of the keys to wealth. But
I agree.
okay, Kevin, what is one lesson you learned you wish you would have known at the beginning of the entrepreneur journey?
I'm still getting.
I love the mindsets.
Ask me in 20 years. I don't know if this was necessarily the beginning, but this is what came to mind is, and this isn't necessarily the entrepreneurial one, but someone once told me, don't confuse experience with wisdom. And I think that fits in medicine. I think that fits with entrepreneurial stuff. Like, oh, I've done it. I've done this thing. I know this thing. I'm like, yeah, but have you done it for 20 years, day in and day out? Like, I can do a lot of things. I can speak into a lot of things, but I'm not wise. Like, I'm not wise yet. Like, that's why I think it would be a much better question to ask me. We'll circle back. We're going to circle back. Kristen and I are going to in
Put a
our
pin in it.
yeah,
Give us a
50s,
decade.
50s and 60s, and we will be speaking at a conference,
There
and
you
you can get that question then.
go. All right, fair. Kyle said, how do you keep motivated through the whole entrepreneurship thing? Do you ever get burnout?
So, burnout, no. Tired, yes. Discouraged, yes. My experience with burnout was working at a church and having this very idealistic job and this very important job, doing what I was doing was very important, and then realizing like the system I was working in was extremely toxic and I didn't believe in it anymore. And this is again a whole nother story. But that's what burns people out in medicine is you have idealism versus a system that's going to crush your idealism. I don't think it's burnout that I feel. A lot of times it's just discouragement, it's being tired, it's wanting to give up. And how do I stay motivated? I think a big part of it is hope. I think like that I think what I'm doing is valuable and I really want to I think not only just like grow what I've created, but I think what I'm making is of value. And then I have a wife that's really encouraging. So when I'm like, I can't do this, she's like, yes, you can, keep going. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm gonna
Oh,
keep
okay, she said so. I love it. I think
um
it's the same. Yeah, I don't know if burnout's the right, but definitely seasons of like genuine discouragement.
yeah.
And usually that's like on the back of a lot of failure, kind of like back to back to back, or people being turds on the internet, whatever it is, things you would never say to someone in person, keyboard warriors. But actually, I one of the things that helps me is I kind of like keep a collection. I've heard it referenced as like a cookie jar. And so
Mm,
I literally have like my own journal that I like journal in all the time. And I'll go back and find like someone had sent me like a nice message 5 years ago saying like,
mhm.
hey, whatever this XYZ thing like really helped me. And now I feel like more equipped as a single mom. And I'll like
Mhm.
go back and reread it and just be like, see, someone out
Someone,
there is like benefiting. And that
yes.
similar to what you said, it's like, okay, pushing
Yeah.
forward. Also, my husband is the same way. He'll kind of like watch me like melt down and then he's like, okay, are you done? So like, what's the plan? And what are we gonna get up
Yeah.
into tomorrow?
Yeah.
Like, okay. You'll have negative seasons, but it's true, I think, in medicine too. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you'll have seasons of being like, I'm tired of this, or, you have a bunch of negative patient interactions or negative administrative interactions, and you feel like, should I bow out? And a lot of times, those seasons you can navigate them if you can like use some mindset tricks and eventually turn it around. Caitlin asked a good question. So for 1099 work, how do you know if you have to pay quarterly or yearly? Well, Caitlin,
My
start by saying, ask your CPA.
yes.
And
Ask
then
your
I'm going to
accountant. Ask
follow
your
it up
attorney.
by saying general rule of thumb is about $1,000.
Yeah.
If you are going to owe less than $1,000, a lot of times they'll make you file annually or file annually, pay annually. And if you're going to earn more than that, a lot of times you're quarterly, but you should double check with a CPA
Yep.
to make sure that you're compliant.
Yep.
It is honestly just as simple as getting in touch with a CPA and
Mhm.
saying, hey, I have 1099 income. How do I structure taxes? And
Mhm.
also, how can you help me maximize my deductions? Because there
Yes.
are a lot more deductions available to you with 1099 work if you
Yeah.
are aware. And a
Yeah.
lot of things that like you're already paying for personally could
Yeah.
be tax deductible if you are checking in with your CPA regarding that. So if you are a 1099 person, please don't use TurboTax. Please have a real CPA
Yes.
that you can ask questions of and they can make sure you're optimized.
Yeah, I'm going to answer Whitney's question too below that because any resources for 1099 maximize deductions. An accountant. Like it's really like talk to the person that legally like their job is to make sure that you don't go to jail. And they'll tell you exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
And also another one we talked about, attorney, accountant, financial advisor. I think a lot of people think they're superheroes and they can match their S&P 500 and they know all the resources. And I've talked with my financial advisor and he basically like he'll say this thing is like, oh, this thing exists that you've never heard of because you've never made this much money that you could do. And I'm like, oh, really? Like, okay, let's do that. Ultimately, I think the entrepreneurial question that someone asked earlier to call back to that is like, what is something you wish you knew? There are people to trust. There are people that are worth trusting and the people that get in your corner. Accountant, financial advisor, attorney are all really good. I think also judiciously and wisely about this partners of people that who are people you want to journey in life with. And these are questions of, you do this in marriage, of who you're going to spend the rest of your life with. You do this kind of in your career, but much easier to walk away from. But who is someone you want to partner with, and who's someone that you want to, like, I had someone want to partner with me once, and she was a nurse and she was really excited about what I was doing. We had all these ideas, and then she just disappeared. And I realized, like, she had the same strengths and she brought the same things to the table as me, understanding of medicine and ideas. But I didn't need that. I needed someone who understood, like, business organization and strategic planning in a way that I didn't. And so the people you partner with are going to make it, like, entrepreneurship is super lonely. Having someone to come alongside you and be like, bro, it's okay, let's go, is really, really big.
Yes, for sure. And also, I did want to mention to you, Whitney, I'm guessing you're inside the Millionaires in Medicine Club. We've had 3 different live events with CPAs that are in the vault. Kevin Schneider comes to mind, and Brian Martin, and then there was one other one. Kevin Schneider's content, it talks a little bit more about leveraging real estate, but the other two we go over in quite a bit of depth, some strategies for tax optimization for 1099 workers. So you may check those out too, just to kind of get the ball rolling and start thinking of ideas. Those were some really good live events that we have had CPAs host with us.
I would say, I mean, I didn't watch those. I think those are great. I would say in that, don't boil the ocean. You're not going to do everything at once. You're not going to suddenly, like, be a 1099, maximize your deductions, invest in real estate, do all these things all at once. You're going to do one thing. You're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to form an LLC. Okay, next thing, this, and then this. And it's gonna be a very slow process.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yes, it's true. Don't I've never heard that expression, but I really like it.
That's what my partner Andrew got me saying that, because he would say that. I'd be like, we could do 500 different things. And he's like, dude, don't boil the ocean. Let's just do the next thing. Like,
That's a pretty darn good one.
yeah.
Well, I'm going to put the link in the chat here for people to grab the PA guide from you. We do have a code. I'm going to put that in here too.
Yes.
And then where is the best place for people to contact you or get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Instagram's good. I limit my time on that. I'm also on LinkedIn and YouTube and X, but through the website or through Instagram are probably the best way. So please follow me, share what we're doing. If you are practicing or not, or you're a student, which I doubt you are in this group, but go for it. I would love your support, and we would love your support. Yeah. So
I love it. PJ, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate you saying that what we're doing is important. There are a lot of medical professionals who really, we don't learn anything about money in school, and our student loan stuff is really complicated, especially in this political climate. And it's a lot to navigate. So I really appreciate you saying that. And also congrats on being a med spa owner for 2 decades. That's no joke. And honestly, anyone who's owned any business profitably for 2 decades deserves like their own applause. So kudos to you.
I would even say that, like, my brother-in-law works in finance, and he's like, what he learned getting his master's in finance was not the stuff we're talking about now. Like, they don't teach this anywhere. It's not like there's a personal finance bachelor's of science that people are getting. There should be.
Should be like high school.
Yeah, it should. Yes, we should graduate knowing how to understand this and having, like, a robust, like, I don't care about grapes of wrath. This is much more important.
You're right. Well, maybe one day that can be the change that we help implement, but for today, we'll keep on educating medical professionals. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you mentioned this is like 5 o'clock hour, dinner hour for your family. So we appreciate you being willing to do this for us. I know it's very inspiring for PAs, NPs, everyone really, to see someone be able to successfully navigate clinical work and also starting a business. And so we just appreciate your time and willingness to share.
Well, thank you so much. It's been fun. I had a lot of fun doing this. Thank you guys, to whoever was part of this, and Kristen, it's a delight.
Well, thanks. We'll talk soon. If anyone else wants to reach out, we'll make sure all the links are in the show notes as well, so you'll have access to get in touch with Jonah.
Yeah, please. Take care, guys.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.